I get why you're hesitating. You've probably seen a few industrial-strength gantry cranes online, but you also know how easy it is to waste a good chunk of your budget on a piece of equipment that ends up sitting idle or, worse, can't actually handle the loads you throw at it. The fear of spending money on the wrong thing is real, especially when you're trying to fit a crane into a shop that's already packed with machines, pallets, and a limited amount of floor space. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's talk about the Vestil AHS 21016. At first glance, it looks like a typical steel gantry crane, but the devil's in the details that matter when you actually start using it. The frame is welded steel, which means you're not dealing with bolted-together parts that can loosen over time. The welding gives it a solid, monolithic feel that many shop owners appreciate because it reduces the chance of hidden cracks after months of heavy lifting. The crane comes with 4 nylon casters that swivel and lock in all directions, so you can roll it into position, lock it down, and have a stable platform for the whole 2,000-pound capacity. The real selling point for a lot of small to mid-size workshops is the adjustable height. You'll need a fork truck, a pallet jack, or any other overhead lifting device to raise the boom. But once you have that, changing the height is a matter of a few minutes. In practice, that means if you're pulling a 1,800-pound engine block onto a service bench, you can raise the crane just enough to line up the hook, drop the load gently, and then lower the whole structure back down without having to dismantle anything. I've seen a few automotive shops use this exact method to swap out transmissions that sit on heavy stands, something that would be a nightmare with a fixed-height hoist. Now, who really benefits from this setup? If you run a garage that services trucks, a small fabricating shop that needs to move sheet metal or steel frames, or a hobbyist who builds custom motorcycles, the 2,000-pound rating gives you a comfortable safety margin for most parts you'll encounter. The fact that it complies with CMAA and ANSI standards adds a layer of confidence that the crane has been vetted against industry safety criteria, which matters if you have employees operating it. The lockable casters are a practical advantage too. You can wheel the crane right up to a pallet, lock the wheels, and know the base won't drift when you start lifting. On the flip side, there are a few trade-offs that are easy to overlook until you've got the crane in the shop. First, the height adjustment isn't something you can do with just a hand crank. You need a separate lifting device. If you don't already have a forklift or a sturdy pallet jack, that's an extra expense you have to factor in. Second, the footprint is 10 feet wide, and the boom can extend up to 16 feet when fully raised. In a cramped workshop that's already packed with workbenches and CNC machines, you might find the crane hogging valuable floor space. Finally, the weight of the crane itself is non-trivial. You'll need a solid, level floor to set it on. Otherwise, the casters may struggle to stay locked under load. If you're the type of buyer who only needs to lift a few hundred pounds once a month, you might be better off with a smaller, portable hoist that can sit on a table. Those units are lighter, cheaper, and don't require a forklift for height adjustment. But if you're regularly moving loads that tip the scales at 1,000 plus pounds, or you need the flexibility to change height on the fly for different projects, the Vestil Gantry gives you that adaptability without having to buy a whole new crane each time your job changes. A practical scenario that highlights the crane's strengths. Imagine you're in a small engine rebuild shop and you need to replace a large diesel engine in a chassis that's sitting on a lift. You roll the crane in, lock the casters, raise the boom to line up with the engine mount, and use a chain sling to lift the engine straight up. The load is balanced, the crane's steel frame holds steady, and because the casters are locked, there's no wobble as the weight transfers. Once the engine is out, you can lower the boom, roll the crane to a different corner, adjust the height again, and lift the new engine right into place. All of that happens without having to re-rig a separate lifting system for each step. Of course, the crane isn't a magic solution for every lifting challenge. If your shop layout includes low ceilings, you'll quickly discover that a 16-foot usable height may be too tall, forcing you to work with reduced clearance or to avoid certain overhead obstacles altogether. Also, because the crane relies on external equipment to change height, you'll spend a bit of time setting up each lift compared to a fixed height system.